everyone. My name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. And today we're going to be talking about praise kink and affirmation play. What exactly do those terms mean? Why do so many people like playing with them? And what are some beginner-friendly ways to start incorporating these kinks into your play or your relationship? We'll be discussing all of that and more in this video, so let's just get right into it. So, first of all, you might be thinking, how in the world can praise be a kink thing? Are relationships just that bad now that simply being nice to your partner is deviant and weird? And yeah, on the one hand, I can see how someone might assume that, especially if you think BDSM is just about stuff that's edgy or dangerous. And with the explosion of the manosphere and stuff like negging in recent years becoming very popular, it can seem like the standards for vanilla dating really are in hell. But that's not quite what's going on here. BDSM isn't just about doing things that vanilla people wouldn't in their relationships. It's also about playing with social norms and emotions, and sometimes that means escalating what people already do with each other and amplifying it intentionally. Praise kink isn't just about being nice to your partner, like that's unique or unusual. It's about using praise as a tool to evoke specific emotional states on purpose. Those can be nice emotions like feeling adored or valued and loved, or they can be uncomfortable emotions too, like embarrassment, humiliation, annoyance, or insecurity. And we'll talk more about how to do that a little bit later on, but that's essentially what praise kink is about. Sometimes it's about giving your partner warm, happy feelings, and sometimes it's about emotional masochism. And it can even be about both at the same time. Affirmation play is very similar, but a little bit broader in scope, I would say. Rather than specifically using praise like, you did such a good job, affirmation confirms that something about the person, typically something positive, is true, such as, you are worthy of love, or you don't have to be perfect all the time. Again, this can seem like standard supportive relationship stuff, but when done in a kink context, it can not only be emotionally intense in a way that's similar to the physical intensity of a standard scene, but it can also be transformational and healing. How and why you're doing this matters. The fact it's done in a kink context changes the approach you have to it and makes it go beyond just like being nice to your partner. And with that being said, this is also a perfect example of why people enjoy playing with praise and affirmation. Folks often say that kink activities are healing for them. The kink allows them to re-experience things from earlier in their lives on their own terms while being totally in control. That is true for emotional experiences as much as physical ones. Maybe someone came from a home where they never heard that their parents were proud of them. Maybe they were the gifted kid in a high-pressure home and nothing they did was ever good enough. We're also increasingly learning that a lot of kinky folks are neurodivergent, and so that means lots of folks who were told, for example, that they were lazy or not applying themselves growing up. Hearing a partner praise them or recognize their efforts in adulthood can do so much good for people who have had experiences like that. Now, to be clear, as we say, BDSM is not therapy. I am not saying that praise kink can take the place of mental health work. If you feel like you have a severe and pervasive low level of self-esteem or have trauma from childhood coming up during your play, I would really recommend working with a kink-aware mental health provider and establishing a good support network if you would like to use praise and affirmation in your scenes. There is no shame in that. But with that being said, lots of people do find kink helpful for rewiring negative past experiences. Praise and affirmation don't have to be rooted in that, though. It can also be about getting your needs met in a way that doesn't provoke guilt or shame. A lot of folks struggle with feeling needy and believe that if they need a lot of verbal affirmation from a partner, they'll be seen as insecure. But when you use praise and affirmation in a kink context, suddenly you have a great excuse to ask for that kind of thing intentionally. It's okay in BDSM BDSM to be a little needy, or at least it can be if you negotiate for it. And if your partner knows it's okay and is randomly using it during your interactions without you explicitly asking, well then, can you really say that you're being needy? Because it's just like happening to you and you can't do anything about it. The same applies to both the person giving praise and the one receiving it. Some people are naturally very romantic or effusive with their positive feelings about their partner, and that can make some folks uncomfortable. But when you have a dynamic where making someone feel uncomfortable is okay, or where you can just totally be open about all of your feelings and your partner appreciates that about you, that can make you feel good too, since by accepting your words, they're also accepting a part of you that others may have struggled to accept in the past. Sometimes, though, praise just feels nice. It doesn't have to be for any complicated psychological reason. Play can just be for play. It can also be nice to hear your partner say something sweet and be able to lean into it, just like it's nice to be able to tell your partner sweet things, especially when they have no choice but to accept it. And finally, one other reason why folks like praise and affirmation is because it fits naturally with the types of role play they enjoy. For example, caregiver and little dynamics and pet play often feature some element of praise. I don't know many pets who don't like at least occasionally being told that they're a good boy or a good girl. And what little doesn't like being told that they're brave or smart or did a good job dressing themselves this morning? In fact, getting this kind of positive reinforcement is what draws a lot of people to these types of dynamics, even if they don't consciously realize it. So, those are some of the reasons why people like playing with praise and affirmation. But how do people actually incorporate this into their scenes and relationships? One big way goes back to that positive reinforcement I mentioned. For folks who play with domestic service or have a DS relationship, praise is one way that dominants and tops can give back the energy they receive from their bottoms or submissives. Not every servant likes to be thanked, of course, so you can't take it for granted they'll want this, but for those who do, a simple "Thank you, this is exactly how I like my coffee" can mean the world. Speaking as someone who is service-oriented in my kink, I've noticed that a lot of D-types struggle to know what to do when they get service or what to say, and starting off with some basic praise is the perfect place to start. But not because you have to go totally overboard with it, but because it gives you a way to recognize and accept your partner's efforts, rather than leaning into it in a way where it can feel rejecting. Because a lot of people have a tendency to go, "Oh, I don't deserve this, you're doing too much." And when you're doing service, that actually is really discouraging and is not the right energy to play with most of the time. And when you are playing with praise, the more specific you can be, the better. While good girl is great and all, being specific shows you're invested and paying attention. As I have discussed before on the channel, a lot of S-types crave feeling seen by their partners, and that means picking up on the details of what they do and why. If you can demonstrate that while also offering praise, this will reinforce the dynamic twofold. Praise and affirmation applied to service and DS tends to be on the lighter end of the spectrum. It's often direct and to the point and meaningful because it is given sparingly. When your S-type is told that they pleased you, they can know that you really mean it, and it's not just something that you said without thinking, like saying, "I'm fine," when a cashier asks you how your day is going. You can elevate giving your partner praise in an arrangement like this by asking them to kneel before you give it to them, or by holding their face and asking them to make eye contact with you, or by incorporating it into a larger ritual practice you may already have in your dynamic. You can use praise as an accent to scenes you're already doing too. This is something I recommend to folks who are trying to develop a better relationship with pain, actually. Pausing a scene for a second to communicate, "You're so brave, I'm proud of you, you're doing amazing," or something like that, can do a lot to bolster an S-type's confidence, especially if they have fears of disappointing you or not being able to play for as hard or as long as you'd like. When we're told, "You're doing a great job" by someone that we trust, often enough over time, we may start to believe them, and that can give us the confidence that we need to do hard and scary things without feeling so afraid, and by extension, feel more comfortable with pain and intense sensations, which actually makes them easier to receive. It also works well with bondage, sensation play, heck, even something like fear play too. Whether that's because it's a little bit of a trip to be scared out of your mind, only to then have your captor go, "You're doing amazing, I'm so impressed," before getting right back to scaring you silly, or because it gives you that little injection of confidence you need to keep pushing through the fear when it might seem overwhelming or on the verge of being so. But praise and affirmation do not have to be subtle, and in fact, most of the time, it's probably not when you're playing with it intentionally. A lot of folks will build whole scenes where the entire point is praise rather than treating it like a sort of side piece. Think of it like punishment, except with praise. So like a praisishment? We'll workshop that one. Put your ideas for a praise version of punishment down below. But yeah, with a punishment, the idea is you invent a fake scenario to make up a reason to roleplay being punished for doing something wrong. The inverse of that, I suppose, is making up a fake scenario to roleplay being verbally rewarded for doing something right. Maybe that's a little who is pretending that they got the top award at a science fair, even though there was no science fair, and their caregiver is so proud of them and going on and on and on about how amazing their project was and how hard they worked on it or whatever. Maybe it's a dinner service scene where the D-type has their S-type prepare a meal for them. And once it's served, the D-type can't stop complimenting how every bite and how every course is so perfectly done and to their taste, and so on and so on and so on. And oftentimes, these scenes are directly what they seem like. The D-type gives praise or affirms something about their partner, and the S-type appreciates it and gets that glowy feeling you get when you know you've had a job well done and your partner sees that. But, especially with really over-the-top praise kink, it can actually loop back around into a form of sadomasochism and can even be a type of punishment. But how can that be? How can it possibly be punishing to be told you're good or smart or whatever? That seems a little silly. Well, a lot of people are bad at taking compliments, to the point that they become flustered and embarrassed about it. Can you see where we're going with this? Because you can also force your partner to take compliments as well. This can be in a sort of consensual, non-consent C&C way, like, I'm going to tell you that you're a worthy person and you're going to take it whether or not you like it. Or it can be a type of emotional sadomasochism. After all, things like fear play and humiliation are based on internal discomfort, right? And it can definitely make people feel internally uncomfortable when someone lavishes them with compliments. Imagine, if you will, a scene where you've tied your partner up and are tickling them in all of their most sensitive places, while also telling them everything that you like about them and how wonderful they are, and they can't resist or really tell you to stop because they're too busy being tickled. Or maybe you do a sort of positive interrogation scene where the secret information you try to get out of your partner is that they deserve to be kind to themselves. Or maybe, perhaps the most terrible idea of all, you sit your partner down and force them to look at themselves in a mirror while they give themselves compliments. When I say this stuff can be a punishment, I mean it. This is the sort of thing that I do in place of physical punishments, and it can be emotionally rough, let me tell ya. And honestly, if you can't get your partner to cry during impact play, maybe give praise kink a whirl and see if that gets some tears out of them. As a side note, I think praise kink is also a great tool for switches as well. If I give one of my partners a compliment, I can kind of gauge how they react to it and use that to figure out if they're in more of a subby or dommy headspace that day. And praise also makes a great group scene dynamic too, whether it's positive or sadomasochistic. You can have all your friends get together and write nice messages on their body, or have your partner sit down in a chair while each friend comes up one by one to tell them something that they really appreciate about who they are as a person in detail, that kind of thing. Maybe give it a try at your next kinky birthday party. The birthday haver can be a human birthday cake, and when everyone else at the party blows out their candles, instead of making a wish, they praise the human birthday cake out loud in one big ol' circle. But no matter what you do, when your partner starts blushing or trying to hide their face or look away, that's how you know you've really hit the mark. By comparison, affirmation play, at least in my experience, almost always involves some sense of discomfort. It rarely feels easy to do because if it was easy, you wouldn't really have motivation to affirm it, would you? Just looking at your partner in the eyes and telling them, you don't need to be perfect to be worthy of being my submissive can turn them into a puddle in an instant. But if you want to make the point even clearer, you can design a whole scene around that insecurity you're trying to address, like giving them an impossible task, and rather than punishing them when they can't complete it, tell them that they always go above and beyond and that they're not a bad person for failing sometimes. Or if they're insecure about being a crybaby, do a scene that makes them cry easily, and then stop to comfort them and tell them that you think that they're a strong person because of their ability to feel so easily, and that having big feelings doesn't make them weak. Have I mentioned that this stuff can be emotional edge play? Because it definitely can be. So please make sure you negotiate thoroughly before doing any of this. These are not the sort of scenes that you want to spring on someone unannounced because they can unearth a lot of deep feelings for people. The final question is, though, how do you know what to praise or affirm? Sure, we can always reach for the generic stuff like good pet or compliment them about what they're actively doing in the moment and stuff like that, but how can you make it more personal? For this, I like to borrow a page from Midori's humiliation playbook, somewhat literally actually. Midori talks about understanding your partner's inner core pillars. What are the most important aspects of how they view themselves, like intelligence or kindness? And then not playing with those pillars during humiliation because you don't want the whole house, aka their psyche, to come crashing down because you don't really want to do genuine lasting harm. And we can take that same principle and use it with praise, but we target those core pillars on purpose. Have your partner sit down and list out what traits about themselves are the most important to them and how they view themselves. If one is their sense of humor, compliment their wit and how they always make you laugh. If it's their personal style, compliment how put together they look and how much work they put into curating a wardrobe. And by the way, real quick, unless otherwise stated, it's usually a good idea to avoid only doing shallow physical compliments when doing praise kink because that might make your partner feel like the only thing that you like about them is their body, but that can be fun to play with for some people as long as everyone knows that it's okay. If we're looking at affirmation play specifically, we can examine the areas that are hardest for our partners to accept about themselves or things that they're actively currently working on. Like, for example, if they're a hard worker but they feel like they're never doing enough, or if they consistently put other people first and don't take enough time for themselves, we can affirm that sort of thing. That's what you're looking for more with affirmation play. And if this is a kind of play that you want to dip your toes into, you don't need to plan anything super elaborate. I'd recommend starting by, with permission of course, dropping compliments during your regular time around each other and during scenes. It might feel a little bit awkward at first, so try to find more natural places to pop it in. Maybe you do a traffic light color check-in, or use a number system when you play together. When they're able to respond, you then tell them how proud you are of them knowing their bodies so well and giving you the information you need to do the scene, whether they're giving you a green, a yellow, a 2, or a 10. During aftercare, remind them of how they did great and that they took whatever that you gave them so well. Tell them how beautiful or handsome they look wearing your collar. Simple stuff like that so you can both get used to doing it, and then over time you can add more and more and make it really over the top and elaborate if you like. But it's also okay just to keep it as a sort of accent piece as well. And definitely don't forget about using things that are roleplay specific, be it with pet play or DDLG or with service or any other type of roleplay you might engage in. Praise is a great area to incorporate that in as well. And with that being said, that is everything that I wanted to talk about with praise kink and affirmation play. This is a really interesting area of kink because it does kind of seem like, well, like, what's the line between, like, healthy relationship and BDSM? And this definitely skirts the line where it's like, is this something that people should just do? And I think it's that taking it into an intentional place, having it be really over the top sometime, using it as a tool to reinforce your dynamic or role play that really takes it into a kinky place. But, like, Praise is fun and interesting, and I think especially for folks that have trouble accepting compliments, this can actually be really healing work. But with that being said, I would love to hear your thoughts about this one in a comment down below. If you play with praise, kink, or affirmation play, I would love to know if I missed out on anything that you do in your play. If there's any ideas you'd recommend for people, let me know your thoughts and feelings in a comment down below. And if you really enjoyed this and you're not already, please do subscribe because I make videos every week talking about kink and BDSM. And finally, if you really want to support what I do, the best way to do is with Patreon. Link to that will be down below. If you do already support me there, thank you so much. It means the absolute world to me. And until I see you all next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.